Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to concentrate on the Mexi this time. It's got a couple of oil leaks, some from the engine, some from the gearbox, and it's making a mess on the unit floor here, so that's kind of made it a bit more of a priority. I can also kill a few birds with one stone here because when the engine's out and the gearbox is out, it might give me better access to some of the welding that needs doing to the floor. And I can also correct the rear suspension because it's very slightly lower on one side than the other. And in order to do that, you've got to take the spring plates off, which means disconnecting them from the gearbox. Obviously, if the gearbox is out, half the job's done, there's no point doing it again. So we'll do that as well. So first things first, need to get the rear drums off. These are particularly difficult on Beetles because the hub nut, a big 36mm nut, is very, very tight. And often you need an assistant to sit in the car with the brakes on while you use a big lever and try and hoik it off. If all else fails, I'll cut the nuts off because they're not that dear to replace, and it's better than spending all day fighting with it. So we'll see how we go. Wish me luck.
Okay, here's the coupling, and if I move the gear leaf backwards and forwards, you can see there's quite a lot of play in it as well. So there we are. If the camera's picking that up, then I'll zoom in a bit. You can see how much slack there is in it while the shift rod moves before the linkage actually moves. So I suppose that means it's going to get a new coupling as well. While the car's safely on the ground, just going to undo this access cover here. This allows me to get at the gear linkage because this is the last thing to do inside the car, and then the gearbox can be taken out from outside. So once it's back up in the air, don't need to worry about this again. So it's remove that cover and then undo the coupling inside. With the wheel off, the next thing to do, take the split pins out so we can get this big hub nut off. Easy as that. You're supposed to disconnect the fuel lines and cap them off, but these fuel lines are the original ones when the car was built. You can tell because some of the clips had never been replaced. So I thought it was time to replace them. So if they're going to get replaced, I can just cut them off, which also makes it a bit easier as well. Okay, back up in the engine bay now is this wiring harness connector. You release the large section there, which turns around and pulls it off. That's all the wiring to the engine harness, and that's to the car. So that goes out of the way. Next thing to do is pull the fuel rail and injectors off. The rail is held on with that small Allen bolt, which you can just see on the left hand side there. It's a bit awkward to get at, but it's not that difficult. And then the injectors just pull out of the head and along with the rail. You just need to move them to one side because they're prone to getting damaged when the engine is pulled out. These two vacuum lines go from those ports there on the inlet manifold and off to the ECU and so on. It's important to get them right, and they both look the same, so I've just labelled them top, bottom, obviously top and bottom there. Guarantee when it comes time to put this engine back together again, I will have forgotten which is which, so that just makes sure I don't do that. With the air filter removed, we can see this large pipe here that goes down to the emissions control setup here needs to come off, because that pipe, if you follow it around, is this one here, and it goes off through the body, so that needs to come off the engine. Also, while we're here, this wire from the alternator, there we are, goes on that post there, so just taking that off as well. Also got to remove the throttle cable, and I think then that's it from up here. There was an earth strap that went to that hinge on the engine lid, so that's come off. So that's throttle cable, emissions control stuff, alternator already done. I think that might be it. So underneath the car where the starter motor is, you can see this wire here goes through the tinware, so it needs to be removed from the solenoid there. But there's also another part of it that comes down here, and if you follow this back, it finishes in that plug there. Get the camera out. That finishes in that plug there, so that can be disconnected, so the whole thing comes off in one go. Bit of a struggle because access is very tight, but got the two bottom nuts off the engine to gearbox mount. While we're under here, you can see the state of this. The leaking fluid from the gearbox is just everywhere. The whole thing is a terrible mess, but that's why we're doing this, to fix it. It's also all over the engine. I think that's gearbox oil on the engine, but I'm not absolutely certain. So, yep, get the car a bit lower, do the top ones, and then that should be the engine free. Right, all the bolts are loose. Let's see if it comes out. That's good. Started to give the engine a bit of a clean up, just some WD-40 and a rag, and it's coming up quite nicely, so I'm pleased with that. I think I'll continue getting it all clean at some point, but for now, next thing to do is take the gearbox out, which means stripping the brakes down first. Fairly sure this won't work, but it's going to be worth a try. It works. It works. That's a mess. Give it a bit of a clean up. I serviced this car just before I took it off the road, actually. One of the things that I did was filled the gearbox up with oil. I thought I needed to top it up, but it was actually completely empty. So it took a load of oil to fill it up, most of which is on the floor now. I thought it was because it was leaking from around the flanges, which it is leaking from, but this whole hub area here stinks of gearbox oil, and the little half shaft is wet through with oil as well. So I think the seals have failed in the wheel bearings here too. Luckily I've already got a set of spare seals for both sides, so that's no problem. I put those on, but first of all, got to take this apart. There's no way of getting the slave cylinder off without losing fluid. As it happens, I happen to have a spare pair of new slave cylinders as well, so might as well stick them on. That means losing the fluid, so be it. This hard line for the brakes here is a bit of a mess as well. It's quite corroded and it's not that long, so might as well replace that too. I've got all the tools and everything to put the flares on, so I just need to get hold of some brake pipe. Now I can get these 4 bolts off and the wheel bearing out. One, 2, 3, 4. That's the gearbox oil. This is a mess, isn't it? Back on there, I think that'll stop most of that leaking. The gearbox oil stopped. Still leaking brake fluid though, so what I'm going to do there is put a glove over it. This glove. Like that. And then a couple of cable ties to hold that in place. I could of course just fold that brake pipe over and crimp it and that would stop it leaking, but I need to use this as a template for the new one that I need to make. So I need it to be undamaged, or less damaged, no more damaged than it already is. Right, get it on the side, and then undo a few bolts, and the gearbox comes out. Right, here's the gearbox straight out of the car. It's a bit of a mess, as you can see. But I will take it outside, give it a blast with the pressure washer, and try and get it to look a bit better. I think the starter motor's had seen better days as well, so I have actually got a spare starter, so I will put that on. I'll take it off obviously before I do the pressure washing. Yeah, let's go outside, get it cleaned up. Right, we'll end this here. The car's still at the unit, it's got the engine and gearbox out of it. I've ordered the replacement parts so that we can repair the leaks, put the brakes back together with new shoes and so on. The parts should be here tomorrow because Machine 7 deliver everything immediately. So hopefully one evening this week, maybe weekend, get back to the unit and get it all back together again. Thanks for watching. If you're liking what you're seeing here, please click like and subscribe and leave a comment. Thanks. Bye.